Now, you did this research for this book you wrote, the Orange Line, A Woman's Guide to...
Integrating Career, Family and Life.
And this quite profound concept that you discovered, I guess, in that research, you called the feminine filter. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, we called it the feminine filter because it's a simple way of saying what we heard from all the women we interviewed. And it comprises of doing it all, looking good, and being very, very nice.
Well, that sounds like the ideal woman for a patriarchal man, for a patriarchal organisation.
Oh yes, it dovetails so beautifully in with patriarchy and what to enable men to function at a really high level.
So if it enables men, would it be true to say that it could possibly limit women?
Absolutely. Because, for instance, if you're doing it all and you believe that you are responsible for home and family, you're looking after the aged parent in some way, you're making the calls, you're packing everything up when you're travelling, you've got the whole week organised for your children so that when you're away, everything's functioning. It's exhausting for women. In fact, one woman said to us, if all I had to do was work, I would have so much energy and I would get so far in my career, but it's everything else I have to do that's exhausting.
So did you hear things like they're saying, I'm always playing catch up, or I'm always late, or...
I'm always exhausted. That's usually what's happening. So, there's only so much energy we all have. So if you're focusing on that, self-care is often the consequence. So, women will burn themselves out, or they'll make choices for damping down their career because that feels like the only way you can do it is damp it down. So they won't put their hand up for the promotion, or in some ways it's reinforced often by a partner or their husband to say, well, you sure you're going to be able to manage it all? So
the assumption being that she should manage it all.
Exactly.
Because she has been in the past.
Exactly. And I just heard last night, just talking with a woman, her husband keeps saying, why do you keep doing that? Why are you making those choices for work? And she loves her work because he feels like he's got a little bit more pressure to step up. And he would much prefer for her to damp down her career so he could step up his, instead of the way we viewed it for the Orange Line. And we heard the best relationships and the way of integrating was for both parents to be, very supportive for one another during different stages of their life. So looking at career as about, this is my stage to excel, and his might be, I'll step back a little bit, and then vice versa.
Yeah. Looking good.
Well, that's all about being perfect at what you do. And so, again, a lot of energy goes into, for instance, before you walk out the door, making sure everything's tidy, the beds are made, everything's ready for when you walk back in. The kids are all, looking spectacular. And at work, over achieving in sort of one area, often at the expense of things that aren't really that important compared to other strategic decisions about your career or about what the workplace needs. So if you're going to be perfect at everything, again, you'll fail. You just can't be. The best example is women that can make choices where it's good enough, and it's not that they're slack, but they're providing what is good enough in the areas that are not important, and then areas that are important about their career, that they are making those choices.
And while they're doing it all and looking good, they have to be nice, which means...
Well, they won't ask for the the raise or the salary that they should be getting. They don't feel that tangible rewards are important. So if you're going to, be nice, and there's a way of asking for what you need that is appropriate and one that isn't. But I often say, well, why didn't you ask for that? Why didn't you ask for help? And they said, I don't like doing that. There's an expectation that I should be able to do it all, look good and be nice. And it's not realistic. Men don't do that. They'll be focused on their job and yes, they've got a family, that's good, but it's very important that you can't be nice at the expense of yourself.
Okay, so when I learnt about that, or when we're discussing this, all of a sudden we thought, well, if there's a filter for women, which is really a product of a patriarchal system, this is creates paths of least resistance for a woman to be totally accepted within a patriarchal male-dominated system. Is there a similar thing that's grown out of patriarchy that's like a set of guiding principles or filters for men? And we gave it some thought, and we did come up with the masculine mantra, which we thought, whereas that one there, the feminine filter, do it all, look good, be nice. This one we felt was be a hero, keep control, and win at all costs. And that's, I think when we dug down, what that creates a different set of unrealistic expectations. So you can still end up with a man who's exhausted, as well as the woman who's exhausted. It's just that he's exhausted doing what he really likes, or what he feels is his role, that perhaps resonates with him a bit more than all this self-sacrifice that goes with the feminine filter, because he's the result of what he's doing in that hyper-masculine style is making lots of money and status and driving the big car, and yes, he might be tired, but he feels pretty good, and society is saying, wow, aren't you amazing?
He's getting the reward, and often I think he walks in the door at night, and so if things aren't perfect at home or whatever, he'll often take out frustration on the wife or the children, because that's quite exhausting, keeping up that facade.
Yeah. So there's the be a hero can mean that, there's an assumption underneath that like it's up to me to make everything happen. I'm expected to provide for and protect the family. There's that hero archetype, that warrior archetype. I'm out, that's me against the world. And perhaps you're hearing things like, I'm the man for the job. And I think it's underpinned by that ancient patriarchal myth, which is father knows best. And that contributes to the notion of being right. There's quite often an obsession with thinking I'm right, I have to make the right decisions. And then you get that hubris, which comes from that real belief that I am right. And I'm supposed to be right.
It can be very black and white thinking. You're wrong, I'm right. So it's very binary instead of inclusive, and coming up with new and better, new and bigger ideas, or new different ways of solving problems.
Yeah, and that either or binary thinking is just. It's just far too simplistic for the complexity of, virtually every human relationship, and leading organisations in a complex world. It just doesn't go looking for simple answers, quick fixes, and all that.
And how it plays into it, because of the be nice for the women, they believe that in the rules. You see, if I'm nice, then I'm going to be rewarded because I've done this. But in actual fact, it's fitting into exactly what you're talking to. By being nice and not asking for what you need or whatever, then it gives more of that, if I say power, but that authority to what we're talking about, the masculine mantra. So the two are completely related when you look at it this way. Be a hero, keep control and win at all costs. and the do it all, look good and be nice is just the other bookend to that.
Yes, and with the keep control, there was there's several parts to it. One is I've got to be in control of my own emotions. So you get people who are not showing weakness or vulnerability, and as a result, perhaps they don't seek help when they really need it.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be, I mean, these all tie in together. You're supposed to be a hero, a warrior. And you hear things like tough it out, harden up, so the lack of empathy too. And then the belief that you can actually control your organisation or your team of people as if it was a machine where you can just pull levers.
Yes.
And that command and control style of leadership, again, is perfectly suited for something where, let's say you did have a factory where there's just a few levers, well, let's pull a lever. However, if, like in a complex organisation, in a complex world with globalised economies and all this stuff going on, you can't just predictably pull levers and control stuff using that machine metaphor. And that machine metaphor is something that underpins there.
And I think it reinforces, when we look at the look good that women have, is that the underlying assumption there is I'm not good enough. So if you've got somebody thinking they're going to keep control, and it's black and white and it's a checklist, and the woman then feels, well, I don't meet up to the expectations because I've got all this other stuff going on. One reinforces the other to keep the whole system going.
Yeah, and that ties back to this notion of every system creates paths of least resistance. And if you push against it, you get punished, or it just doesn't work. And these can be quite subtle. I think win at all costs, that's probably the most dangerous one in terms of what's going on in the world and what goes on in relationships as well, where you get this notion of ruthlessness, that whatever it takes, I need to compete with others, and if I compete, if I'm going to win, somebody else has to lose. And
it really plays out in relationships, personal relationships as well as workplace relationships, where if there's a marriage breakdown, that someone has to win. I mean, this is a no-win situation. So in an organisation, it can be within a team that someone has to prove that they're better than everybody else. So it's destructive in terms of the creativity that needs to be produced to deal with the complexity of life and organisations and what's happening in the world.
Yeah. If you look at the masculine mantra and the feminine filter as these complementary guiding principles that underpin the way men can be and women can be in this traditional patriarchal system, then that's very much something that when we're working with people, that becomes the subject of a courageous conversation.
Yep.
Because it's not about it. Nothing changes by just saying this stuff.
No.
It's only when the people within the organisation sit down and have this honest communication where they openly talk about how this has played out in their own lives or how they've seen it in colleagues or friends or relatives, that you get those aha moments and you raise the consciousness of the group around what is going on in a patriarchal way. And a lot of this stuff, of course, just seems quite normal to the participants.
Yes, yeah. And I know in my coaching, once people say, that's what it is. That's what it is. And it's such a simple concept, the mantra or the feminine filter or the masculine mantra. It's very easy to grasp when you're finding yourself falling into the trap. And what women have done is, because of the energy that men exude from that kind of behaviour, they'll often put on what we call in the book, the dirty sweater. the man walks in at night with this kind of energy, and she's feeling not good enough, and she'll try and acquiesce what she's feeling and try and make him feel better, or instead of, from a healthy perspective, both people recognizing that it's okay just to be vulnerable and be who you are, and work on things together. But it plays out very much in organisations, and women will personalise things that they actually shouldn't personalise. Once you've personalised it, you're trying to fix up the other person, and that's not healthy. So, I mean, everything you and I are talking about is having the healthy feminine and the healthy masculine.